6:30. We have a full committee here with us this evening in person, so welcome everyone. This is the Wednesday, August 23rd meeting of the Development and Government Relations Subcommittee with the Holyoke City Council. My name's Tessa Murphy-ROMBOLETTI. I'm a city councilor at large and I'm the chair, and I'm joined this evening by committee members Councilor McGivern, Councilor Rivera, Councilor Vacant, Councilor Bartley. I also see on the Zoom call that we have Councilor Maldonado Velez is here with us, and some folks from the Office of Planning and Economic Development, and of course Conservation. So this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. It's also available on Zoom, and we thank Holyoke Media for helping us out today. So with that, I will entertain a motion to open the
Motion to take up item 1 and open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. So this is for the special permit application of Salmar Realty for a special permit for proposed coffee shop drive-through restaurant at South Street Plaza. This was continued from the last meeting, and we were contacted, staff was contacted by the proponents requesting a continuance. They don't have everything that they need ready yet, so we are, I'm open to that. And looking, I know we have to choose a date. So I was looking before and checking the city council calendar, would either Monday, September 18th or Wednesday, September 20th work?
Wednesday the 20th would work for me,
Okay.
That's fine with me.
I'll be in Dallas.
or the 27th.
Yeah, I'd rather.
27th.
There's a meeting that day, public safety. I like the 25th if that's possible. So
Right now, I could do the 25th or the 27th, which,
the 27th, there's a public safety meeting.
oh, thank you.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay, I didn't have it in my calendar.
oh, yeah. Oh, there it is.
I
Okay.
can do the 25th.
I'll make a motion, Joe. Jenny?
That's fine, yeah.
Let me check. I'm supposed to be in training in Dallas. I'll be back.
Okay.
That's good for me.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we
I
can.
think there's some microphones off.
Oh, thank you.
I'll make a motion that we continue this public hearing until Monday, September 25th at 6:30.
Second.
All those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed? Just to double check, Jeffrey, I'm not missing anything, right?
That's the night before the preliminary. I did reach out to
That should be
Brenna.
fine. It's just one ward.
Okay.
One word,
Okay.
for heaven's sakes.
If there's any, just let me know, but let's hold that. Okay. All right.
Go to Monday the 2nd if you want it, but if he's,
I think it should be, I think
should be.
the 25th should be okay.
good.
All right. So that's item 1. Motion to take item 2 off the
So moved.
table.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. So this is ordered that the city council declare a lot on Easthampton Road as surplus property available for disposition. This was tabled at our last meeting, and we have been joined by Yoni. Thank you for being here again. We appreciate your time. And, at the last meeting, for those who may not have been in attendance, there was discussions about the parcel, if it is made available for disposition, what does that look like? And we had discussed that you might be getting an assessment, appraisal, thank you. And so you've sent us the appraisal, and we appreciate that, thank you. So do you want to talk just a little bit about the findings of that, and if there's anything else that has happened that we should be aware of since the last meeting based on our discussions, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just as a reminder, this is a 53.5 acre undeveloped parcel on Easthampton Road. This has been, a piece of property of high conservation value and on our radar for some time. The city acquired it for a tax taking in 2007. There was some recent interest expressed from Mass Fish and Game for an acquisition. They put in a preliminary offer. Obviously, the parcel would need to be made available for surplus before any RFP process or any sale could take place, but it seemed like a good time to revisit the property again. At the last meeting, we had a preliminary discussion. The committee asked for more information about the parcel, and particularly for the Office of Planning and Economic Development to do their own investigation into, is it developable? Is this the highest and best use? So I had a meeting with the folks from that office, and Jane was also there. And we agreed at that time that really the best way to get that information would be to develop we had a restricted appraisal just to see if what Fish and Game was offering was reasonable or what the ballpark value of the property was. We went back and had it developed into a full narrative appraisal, and that really gets into a lot more detail about the site characteristics, the constraints for development, more information about the similar sales that it was compared to in terms of assessing the value. And we were actually able to go back and provide the offer from Fish and Game as something to consider. So it actually resulted in the appraised value increasing a little bit from the initial amount. So I can go through the findings very briefly. The appraiser Bob O'Connor did a series of field inspections, looked at the deed history, looked at the soil maps and research of similar sales, market factors. I think as I described last time, there's a vast network of wetlands kind of in the front half of the property. And then there's a rocky outcrop in the northwest. He said he could see exposed ledge on the site. There's some pictures provided too. The fact that this is a part of the city that isn't connected to municipal sewer means that any development would need to have its own septic system on site. So the rocky ledge probably wouldn't pass a percolation test. Basically, if you go to page, that's cool, you all printed it out. So page 29 gets into the analysis of highest and best use based on all these factors. So he was looking at our zoning ordinance, the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Rivers Protection Act, the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act. There are known to be 5 listed species on the property. And basically, there's a small area, I think he says 0.75 acres, that might be suitable for development as a single residential home. He thought that intense development would probably be speculative and unlikely given the various constraints. So I think that's the main highlights. I can try to answer any questions. If there's any terms in this I don't understand, then I think Jane from the law department's also available online.
Thank you. Great. Really appreciate getting this to us so quickly since the last meeting. I'm going to pause and see who's got questions or comments. Yes, Councilor Bacon.
I'm just wondering, I just missed it, what the new appraised value is.
Oh.
I just didn't note it down.
It's $270,000. And he has a section where there's a detailed analysis, whatever appraisers do, I guess. But it supported
I thought we were looking at 1.1 million, so now you're saying.
That's the assessed value.
Okay.
And
So
for various
you're saying
reasons.
the market value,
Yeah.
and originally you thought it was what for the market value?
267,000.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a little
So
more.
you were pretty close.
Yeah. Well, he was, yeah. The initial appraisal didn't
Initial
change that much, but a little bit.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Other counselors? Counselor McGivern?
Yoni, you said they looked or talked about a possible development for a single-family home. What about a possible development for commercial?
Let me find.
Oh. Remix.
So page 29. Although it is unlike the bottom paragraph,
2.
or yeah, the partial bottom paragraph. Although it is unlikely that development would be prohibited altogether on the property, it is very likely that it would be highly regulated. Oh, sorry, that's not exactly what the citation I meant.
The one that I have highlighted, if I may, any commercial or retail use would likely need to be relocated close to the road. The significant wetland area on the property limits the usable area in the vicinity of the road to a small area near the frontage is estimated to contain about 3/4 of an acre. And the other thing I highlighted was the bedrock may prevent development in this area altogether. But then, yeah, your comment about commercial space. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, just that the site's kind of constrained on two sides. There is an existing, I don't know, maybe that old logging road that does cross the stream. So it seemed like in the interior there could be a small single-family home, but probably not a commercial development because what the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program looks at is not just area of disturbance, but the intended use. So, as it's been explained to me in the past, a single-family home would be considered to have lesser impact than, I don't know, a manufacturing facility for some purpose.
I disagree. I mean, single-family home, and we are in need of housing, but this is an area with the traffic that goes by on a daily basis in the location where there's a possibility commercial development would make a lot of sense. And, you know, I understand commercial development wants to be at the edge of the road, but prime example is a Cracker Barrel. It's a beautiful piece of property, well-developed, and you don't even know it's there when you're driving by on Whiting Farms Road.
Yeah, that's, I'm just reiterating the findings from the appraisal, but
Who did the appraisal?
it's Bob O'Connor. He's been in the field for a long time.
O'Connor Real Estate Associates.
And who hired Bob O'Connor?
The city worked with Kestrel Land Trust to hire him. They have a fund for helping communities do appraisals to look at their own options. So at our request, they paid for it.
How's that?
Okay, Counselor Bacon?
I just have a process question.
Sure.
Because I don't keep this process in my head. So if we declare this surplus, will it go out for RFP, or is it only so that then this offer can be accepted? Will it become an open bid process?
We certainly can. As I understand it, we have the option to do either because it could be a government-to-government transfer. But if the committee wanted there to be an RFP process to see if there's any other interest, we could do it that way too.
So it would be up to us to recommend to the council which way we would go then?
That's my understanding, but
Yeah, I think, if I may, this first step, this order to declare it surplus, as we all know, is just so that we can even be able to do that. So,
Well, right, but I'm just aware that sometimes the mayor makes a deal in terms of a land transfer, and sometimes it goes out to RFP. So I just wasn't sure it just seems like we might have more interest if we put it out for an RFP, but.
Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, so if I may, just through the chair, there's no constraint on the city or the property owner putting it out for RFP to try to evaluate it now. You don't have to declare a surplus. You can do a market analysis now. There's no reason to wait. There's no constraints legally to do that. I'm just going to ask a couple of questions. First of all, I'll make it clear. I oppose completely declaring the surplus. I can oppose it. And I oppose it because I don't have much faith in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, whether it's DCR, Fish and Wildlife. I want to talk about the page that you provided to us with the federally and state-owned land management. Is that for the, it just said, it wasn't completely unclear, but it said DCR has 3,055 acres. But is this in the city of Holyoke?
Yeah, that's a chart from our open space and recreation plan. So it's basically the Mount Tom range is what it's describing.
All right. So DCR has over 3,000 acres in Holyoke. Department of Higher Ed has 136 acres. Fish and Game has 722 acres, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife has 141 acres, a total of 4,054 acres in the city of Holyoke. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay. And what is our does the federal government or the state don't they pay municipalities when they have and they're paying the city of Holyoke?
Yep, there's all those parcels you mentioned are enrolled in the state-owned land payment in lieu of taxes agreement. So,
And do you know what the return is on that? I was hoping that was being the sheet, but I don't see it.
I can look it up. It changes every year because of the valuation system they use, sort of increases the value per parcel. So I don't know the exact details.
All right, well, that's something maybe you can shoot an email. I also noticed in the appraisal that the highest and best use is not to sell it to the Commonwealth of Mass or to the federal government. I don't feel like there's any pressing urgency to declare this surplus right now. I don't think there's any reason to do it. If we're going to market this thing, why don't we do it now with a thoughtful process? Why don't we figure out, bring developers up there, bring people that are interested in alternative uses for the lot, let them walk the land. Just because we get a letter from whatever it is, Fish and Wildlife, or Fish and Game, that doesn't move me whatsoever to declare the surplus. I think the city can figure out a way to get a better return. And I think back to what the town of West Springfield had with Bears Hole when we went through that whole process a couple years ago in this very committee, and the city of Holyoke received a donut, and the town of West Springfield got about over $1 million for land up there. Now, how we can come up with this pittance, in my opinion, for 53 acres of incredibly beautiful property. I'd rather just hold the property in the city of Holyoke, let Holyokers use it as they see fit for as long as possible. I don't think there's any liability to the city of Holyoke either, virtually none, even though we have it in tax title because it's a little used property. So just because the Commonwealth wants to come in and buy this, when it comes time, I'll either vote no on this or I'll make a recommendation that we give this leave to withdraw, one way or the other, because there's no possibility that I'm based on these numbers, there's no possibility with the rationale given that I would support this, and I urge others to consider the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor McGivern.
If I remember correctly, one of the things that the state told us with the Bear Hole incident was our portion of the land was landlocked, which is an argument. This land is not landlocked. You have access to this land off of a state highway, and it's something that needs to be looked at. Whether we declare it surplus or not, I'm not worried about that. But before a final negotiated deal by the mayor comes before us, I would expect that an RFP goes out to see if there is a commercial developer out there and to see if there's something we can do with this that would put something we need, which is property on the tax rolls. That moving target of in lieu of taxes by the state is a moving target not on value, it's a moving target on what they feel like giving us. And we seem to get the short change on a regular basis from the state when it comes to a lot of things. And after Bear Hole, you know, I very much favor the conservation land we have here in Holyoke and the protecting the mountain range and protecting everything. But if they're going to treat us as second-class citizens, you know, when it comes time to helping us with the necessary revenue we need to provide the services to the people who live here, then I think they better take another look and start thinking about us a little bit different.
Oh, Councilor Bacon, and Yoni, do you want to respond to that directly, or?
Yeah, can I? I don't want to break any rules. I guess I'm not sure I understand the comparison to Bears Hole. That was a conservation restriction on land in Holyoke that West Springfield already owned.
It was in Holyoke within our property.
But they owned it already, just like we own land in Southampton with the Thai Carmody.
And we do, and we have that well protected because that is, as you know, our drinking water. And we do a lot of that. But maybe I'm wrong, Yoni, but.
Well, I'm just saying, if we wanted to put a conservation restriction on Thai Carmody and get revenue for it, Southampton wouldn't get anything. So that's what was happening in that situation, to my understanding.
Why?
But
I'm not always right, but why is it that we always seem to be on the short end of the stick when it comes to the state? Why is it when you said there's 5 species on this land that are endangered? Is one of them a snake?
I think there's 2 snakes.
2 snakes, yeah. Why are we protecting snakes? They can take care of themselves. You know, believe me. We had snakes where we made a compost dump, you know, which was, I think, not many cities do. And all of a sudden, you know, a family of snakes decided to move in, make it their home. Next thing you know, we had to reroute a road that we were going to develop for 2 or 3 different businesses because the snakes were living in the compost pile that we created. Compost pile is a good thing, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So, and speaking of that, I found a snake underneath my yard waste, my grass clippings I put out before I put them out. I picked it up, and there was a little snake there. He was nice and warm. I knew. Just
Can't build a
hello.
patio now.
Yeah.
Only kidding.
I'm looking for a little bit more, Yoni, but if we can develop it, it's important to the city because we're very, very poor when it comes to developable land. If it can't be developed, I'm all in favor of making it conservation land. I would like the state to consider giving us a little bit more, but that's just my feeling.
Councilor Bacon?
So I just want to be sure I understood this correctly. It sounds like we could go out for an RFP to see what interest there is before we declare it surplus. There would be nothing stopping us from doing that, right?
Ooh, I don't think,
Nothing.
I don't know.
That
Can-
might be a question for a lot of
I was
people.
going to say, Attorney Manchaleski, are you listening?
I am listening. I don't legally know if that is okay or not. I wish procurement was here to have that discussion. I'm not sure if Attorney Bissonnette, who's also on here, has any familiarity with that, but I can do a quick search right now while you guys continue talking. And again, I think we just lost Attorney Bissonnette, so that's unfortunate. But legally, I'm not sure if that's a possibility, but if Councilor Bartley does have information that we can, that I can look at quickly, then I'm happy to do that too.
Well, the part of the reason I'm asking is because if we can accept an offer when it's not been declared surplus, right, which we already have, we have the offer from the Fish and Game
I don't know if I have always been under the assumption that the first step you have to take is declaring it surplus in order to even put an RFP out. So I see John Dijak has his hand,
Right,
and
but,
he might
but we
know.
have the offer from them already, and we haven't declared it surplus.
But we can't accept the offer.
Well,
It's
right,
the-
No, you can't accept
well, right, but we have.
the mayor has to accept it and negotiate it.
They
I
have-
thought that's what you meant by accept.
No, no, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Let me say that a different way.
Yeah.
Could we receive offers without declaring it surplus?
Sure.
That's what I meant.
Right.
Because we have one sitting in front of us. So it would seem that if we put a notice out that we would like to see if there's interest in this property, we could do that before we declare it surplus. And maybe somebody would make an offer of $500,000.
Right.
I mean, it's 53 acres of land.
Yeah.
That's that's a nice amount of land in this city.
John, did you have your hand up related to this?
I did, and I just wanted to comment that I was actually thinking right along the lines of what Councilor Bacon was suggesting, and somewhat to what Councilor Bartley in terms of seeking the marketability of it. If we could put out an RFP in its without declaring it surplus, but also if there's an offer that comes forward that we want to consider, there's the possibility of putting both orders at the same meeting to declare surplus and then consider the offer. So exactly what I was considering, because one of the best ways to judge the marketability of it is to get it out there. We can talk to some developers, but I'm not sure what legitimate interest we're going to get from that. So.
Right, but we could look. So
Sure.
that would be my preference.
Okay. Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, that would not be my preference at this point, only because there's no restriction whatsoever to market property that one owns at any point in time.
Right.
Okay, so the process in order to convey it is to first declare it surplus by the legislative body by a 2/3 vote. Then when it comes to conveying it out, it's by a simple majority.
Right.
I would strongly caution everyone relative to this. I don't know if I'm going to want to be on a council on a 7-6 vote or an 8-5 vote to declare such an important tract of land available for sale for a mere pittance of $270,000 or whatever it is to the Commonwealth of Mass, where they're going to sit on it when they already own 4,000 plus acres in the city of Holyoke. That is basically a negligible return. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to just give this leave to withdraw right now, figure it out with a better number based upon our conversation we had about Bears Hole, with the town of West Springfield had it, where they got a very handsome check, and Holyoke gets a quarter of that for even more marketable property and even more valuable property relative, especially when it's contiguous to trails and the Mount Tom Res and just the scenic beauty of it. I don't necessarily want to see it developed. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the city of Holyoke has it. That was important property historically with Edna Williams and the log cabin, and to just give it away to the Commonwealth, if you declare a surplus, you're taking an awful risk that we're going to get the Commonwealth to come back in and take it on a 7-6 or 8-5 vote. I don't think that's the way to go. I would give this leave to withdraw right now.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. So I think we're saying the same thing, but I wasn't sure mechanically how to accomplish it, because what I was attempting to communicate was that I think we should see what interest there is before we do anything about declaring it surplus.
Okay. I actually just have a clarifying question that I've been waiting to ask. On page 29 that you've referenced, it does, after it talks about development being probably very prohibitive, it says the rest of the property could be protected through use of a conservation restriction or some other means, which would minimize any further impact. So right now, is there a conservation restriction on this property?
No.
Okay. I thought that would be the answer. And I want to clarify, is if we were to, let's hypothetically say it gets sold to the state, what, in your opinion, I mean, what's the benefits of it being, from a conservation perspective, city property versus selling it to someone, even if it's not the state, if it's another wildlife organization? Are we able, I guess what I'm trying to understand is what's the benefit of us continuing to hold on to it from a conservation perspective?
I can't really see any benefit. We've not been getting any tax revenue or payment in lieu of taxes since 2007 when we acquired it. I think if this is really as undevelopable as it seems, at least getting some revenue and some payment every year is better than nothing. I think if it remains in city control, undifferentiated, it'll, it's fine, but we're not really seeing that benefit. It's,
Okay.
it's more property that the city doesn't really have allocated to any particular use. I mean, you could put it under conservation restriction and put it under the Conservation Commission and apply a conservation restriction. Would also work, but then we wouldn't get any funding at all for it.
Okay. Councillor Bacon?
So I think what I would like to do, in light of the comments that John made, is to either table this or give it leave to withdraw and seek interest in the parcel. See what happens and go from there.
Can I suggest tabling it and finding, can we double check from legal that we're good to take this approach?
Well, I guess we can, but John's been involved with these and he
Right.
said that we could, so
Okay.
he knows.
As long as
But-
everyone feels, yeah, I see Attorney
Hi,
Antoneski.
sorry. Sorry. Thank you. So I did just check it. So it looks like there's no prohibition from
Okay.
putting it out there to at least get the proposals, just as long as we make sure that prior to any disposition, we get city council's approval. So we can definitely, it looks like we can definitely do that.
Good job, Attorney Bartley.
I know you ran the committee for a
Okay.
while. You kind of know the ropes.
Yep, it's good. I have a great vice chair.
Not that I expect that, but, so Madam Chair?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Respectfully, I'd rather not table this. I'd rather either give it leave to withdraw or deny declaring a surplus, with the caveat, of course, that is now on the radar of OPED and the city council, especially newer city councilors that may not have realized this 53.5 acre property existed and is possessed by the city of Holyoke. I'm guessing that's probably the case.
I was surprised it was so big.
Okay, so even more veteran city councilors didn't realize that the size
Wow,
of
when
the
do I
parcel.
stop getting
So-
called the new city councilor? Is it next term? Does it stop?
I know.
Stop after that?
I said newer.
Yeah,
I said,
all right.
But, don't take it personal.
No, I got it.
Please don't.
Yeah.
It's not
I
meant-
didn't
it's not
realize
meant
it was
way.
that large
But,
either.
whether you're new, I'm just guessing certain councilors didn't know. So, but there it is. Now you know the property exists. So I'm going to make a motion that we deny, that we oppose declaring the surplus. That's my motion.
I'll
Do I have a
second that.
second? Okay, open for discussion. Anyone?
I would just like to say, could we market it and see what other interest there might be? Because we know there's at least one party interested. And then we'll see if there's more interest in the market.
Okay, Councilor McGivern, you had your hand?
Find it much more logistically sound just to lay it on the table.
I would agree.
It doesn't make a difference either way. So why?
Microphone.
Oh, thank you, Jeffrey.
Mr. Wizard? I find it more logistically common sense just to lay it on the table and keep the option opened if we find out it's not marketable and conservation is the route that we choose.
All right, so on the motion, we will vote. I'll start, Councilor Bacon. The motion on the table is that the we give it leave to withdraw.
Deny declaring surplus, but
De-
I'll change
Deny
it to give it leave
declaring,
to withdraw.
deny
Either-
declaring it surplus. Sorry about that.
Either
No.
either one's fine. They're both the same thing.
Okay, so leave to withdraw for now. I'll vote yes.
Counselor Bartley?
Yes.
Counselor Murphy-ROMBOLETTI, no. Counselor Jenny Rivera?
No.
Counselor McGivern?
No.
So that doesn't pass.
Make a motion to lay on the table
There's,
with the hope that the city will go out for an RFP for potential to find out there's possibility of commercial development.
So
Any development, but
we
commercial.
can't debate it if it's seconded, so can I say something first?
sure.
So if we table it, we'll be tabling to wait for the process to happen and get feedback from planning on the property. Would be the purpose of tabling it?
To market the property? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess I'm wondering if market it means specifically like an RFP or just market?
I mean, we can't tell anyone to do an RFP. I would prefer an RFP,
Okay,
but yes, the idea is to find out if it is marketable and the best, but with an RFP, I think we'll get some answers quickly.
So if we're tabling it pending the outcome of an RFP, I'm good with that.
okay.
Before we take a vote, I oppose tabling it. I don't think it makes sense. It's going to get buried in this jacket. I don't necessarily think we should have to bring this up every DGR meeting. I hope it. I hope it's not brought up. I mean, so it's going to be marketed and it's going to be buried in this jacket until how long when it's marketed, and then we get what's the difference? Why don't we put it before the full city council and at least have a chance to bring it before the public at a more watched meeting and let the public know that this property exists instead of burying it. What's the difference? I mean, it doesn't make it any faster to leave it in committee.
So,
It doesn't make it faster at all. I think what it does is it just obscures it and takes it out of the public eye until this committee brings it up again. And I just think that's the wrong way to go. I don't see any merit to it whatsoever, so I am going to oppose tabling it.
So as the chair and someone who sets the agendas, I kind of take issue with the term burying it because that sounds like it's a pretty intentional thing that I would try to do to keep it off of the public. So, I think there's folks on this call here who have mentioned the process of an RFP. And I'm fully capable of checking in with staff and saying, hey, how's the RFP going? Is it ready? Have we gotten responses? When's the deadline? And then we can plan from there. The alternative is that we give it leave to withdraw. It doesn't come up before or we vote it down, whatever. We bring it to the city council. And then what? We have to file another order for the same exact thing after that happens, when we could just literally save some time not filing an order for a second time. So, I mean, shall we vote?
There's no motion on the table, correct?
Oh,
Not
I
yet.
thought you
So I'm going to
made
make
a
one motion that we refer just a copy of this with the request to OPID, that they look for an RFP process with the potential of marketing this land for commercial use.
Second.
All right, Jane's hand is down, never mind. Second, now we vote?
Yep.
Counselor McGivern?
You can just, we're all five here. You can
We're all
just
here.
make a-
Oh, all those in favor?
I'm trying to save you some time.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm not used to that.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'll make a motion for the actual real copy to table it.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yoni. Sorry.
Thanks, Yoni. Always a pleasure. You're a great employee. All right. Item 3. I just first want to recognize that we have been joined in council chambers by Councilor Israel Rivera. Thanks for being here. And no one else, no other councilors. Okay.
Make a motion to take item 3 off the table for discussion.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. So item number 3, that the City Council approves the resolution for the certified project application and tax increment financing agreement, which is a TIF, with Sublime Systems LLC for the purpose of the company's acquisition, development, and investments at properties on Water Street. So we are joined this evening by some fine representatives from Sublime Systems, but I also know that we have John Dijek on this call as well, who has been working with the proponents. It's my understanding, John, that we are going to table this for tonight, but I didn't know if you wanted to just add some information or...
Thank you, councilors, and I'm sorry I'm not in person. I thought it was best that I keep remote, but this project with Sublime is for the land along Water Street. We've worked really hard over the last several months to get to this point. However, we still have some terms on the agreement that were not resolved in time, and we think the best course at this point is to suggest that the matter be tabled until we can resolve and give all parties enough time to review the agreement as well as the background in more detail. There was a summary provided. We think this is a great opportunity for the city with some really interesting technology and solidifying the manufacturing, bringing more manufacturing to the city. We work closely with the company, but at this point, we think it's best to, until we can have a final agreement before the board, before the committee, we request that it be tabled.
Okay.
Motion tabled.
So it's not a public hearing, so we don't have to worry
No.
about the date.
Right, yes.
Second.
Yes. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Oh,
Never mind.
sorry, I forgot
I just want to say
discussion.
hi and thank you for your interest, and we appreciate all your efforts and look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Motion to take 4 off the table.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Item number 4, that the City Council approve the resolution for a certified project application and special tax assessment agreement with Valley Malt for the purpose of the company's acquisition and expansion of 4 North Bridge Street in Holyoke. We are joined again by John and Marie. Hi, Marie. With the Office of Planning and Economic Development. And I'm excited to hear about a little background on this project. So I will let you guys lead that for right now. And I know that we're joined also by the owners, Andrea and Christian. All right, awesome.
Yeah. If it's okay, I'll start off, Marie. Aaron is really trying to get here. He's been on the road for most of the afternoon, but he should be joining us. But I wanted to again acknowledge and welcome Andrea and Christian Stanley from Valley Malt. So just a little bit of background, and Marie has more details about the request. But Valley Malt started up in Hadley, and probably for at least 5-6 years ago or more, we were contacted by Valley Malt to find a facility to accommodate their expansion. And after a few years of searching, they found a fantastic location at what many folks know as the Valley Paper Building, which is the same building that Western Mass Elder Care is in, just to the right before you cross the Veterans Memorial Bridge into South Hadley. So when they first went to purchase the building, they worked with the current owner, and it was determined that their best path forward was to initially lease the property. And they arranged a lease with a purchase to buy, and that was maybe almost 3 years ago. And with their anticipation that in about 5 years they would purchase, that schedule has been accelerated. And at the time, 3 years ago or so, OPED was approached about this program to assist them purchase the building. And so the company has made significant investments in the property, but there's still quite a bit more work to do. Their intention is to purchase the property within the next year and to make further investments in both the building, the entire property, as well as equipment for their processing. And so I'll leave it at that. And if it's okay, I'll ask Marie to maybe give a little bit of a summary more on the project itself in terms of what maybe some key points and open it up for questions and go from there.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, John. That was great. And thank you, counselors and Madam Chair. And thanks, Andrea and Christian, for joining us. We're really excited about this. So yeah, we've been working with Valley Mall over the past couple months to get them ready for the EDIP application, which they recently submitted for their special tax assessment, which is on the existing value of 4 North Bridge Street. So it'll be on the portion of the building that they occupy. Valley Mall occupies roughly 51% of this building. So we calculated their incentive, potential incentive, to be what we're calling a 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 schedule. So the incentive will be on starting at 50% of the total value of the property. So in your packet, you can see we have that chart demonstrating that over the course of 5 years, it would be roughly a total exemption of $95,000 roughly for that portion of the building that they're occupying, because they're going to be keeping on, when they purchase the building, their tenant, Western Mass Elder Care, while they continue to expand and invest in the property and their building and continue to hire more people with a focus on hiring Holyoke residents, which they've already been working really hard at, which was really great to see. So right now they've invested already, just over the course of 3 years of leasing, roughly $3 million in their presence in Holyoke. So we're really excited at the idea of retaining this business and helping them invest and solidify their location here. So over the course of the 5 years that this STA would be active, they are planning on investing another $2.7 million, and this includes the $1.26 million acquisition of 4 North Bridge Street, and this also includes another, I believe it was a 1.5 in machinery and equipment. This machinery and equipment is going to necessitate them to hire, I believe it was another 8 people, 8 full-time employees, or over the course of 5 years, which is like doubling their full-time employees, which are full benefited with a minimum $23 an hour. Their average employee is making about $29 an hour, which for Holyoke is really awesome to see. So it's good jobs and they do really good business. They've also shown they work with local businesses a lot. So they support local farms, which they can get into a lot more when I pass it to them, but they do a lot of focus on sustainable agriculture. It's very mission-focused manufacturing, and they're switching to a lot of doing some flour production, which is really cool. So it's not just malting for breweries. They're really expanding that aspect, which is exciting. So I'll answer any questions if there's any questions on that, and then I can pass it to Andrea and Christian to talk a little about what they do and much more expertise than I can provide.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Sounds like a great project. I can pause there, or if folks would rather have the owners introduce themselves, totally. Yeah, why don't we have Andrea and Christian? Am I remembering your names right?
Yep, yes. You've got our names right.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to be here tonight. And thank you very much for your investments so far in the city of Holyoke. I have heard great things about what you do. So just would love a chance for you to briefly introduce yourselves and talk about the project.
Sure. Thank you for having this meeting and for considering this proposal. Basically, we started our business Valley Mall in 2009 in Hadley, where we live. And it was really a proof of concept. We had been interested in local food systems and eating as local as possible when we read an article in a local newspaper about a bakery in Northampton trying to bring back wheat growing and having a local flour mill to the region so that they could be producing local bread that was made from local grains. And we were really inspired. At the time, we were home brewers, and we had an idea of starting a brewery that only used local grains. And we quickly learned in that process of trying to start a small brewery using only local ingredients, which for beer is pretty much malt, hops, water, and yeast, malt being the primary ingredient, that the closest malt house was in Wisconsin, that there was no malt house to process grain anywhere on the Northeast coast. So basically that was when we decided instead of starting a brewery, we should start a malt house and supply all of these other breweries that are starting up in the region. And we started in a neighbor's garage in 2010. We had a farm in Hadley grow 25 acres of barley for us. We got into farming ourselves. We were up to farming about 100 acres while starting this malt house. And basically we proved the concept, and we were finding that we had a lot of business. And over the next 6 to 7 years, we ended up purchasing the property that we were renting from our neighbors. But even that property we were starting to outgrow. And it took us about 3 years to find, we kind of knew that as we wanted to grow, that Holyoke was one of the cities we were primarily interested in because of the infrastructure and because of the green energy. And so we looked for a while, and eventually we were introduced to our current landlord that we're going to be purchasing the building from by the city. John, who's on the call, kind of had the instinct to introduce us. And yeah, and it's just been amazing for the growth of both of our businesses, because in 2018, we started a flour mill. So because we had all these relationships with local farms growing wheat and barley and rye for us, we were able to put in a flour mill and start producing that as well, which came in really handy during COVID when there wasn't a lot of flour for people to buy in the stores. So both businesses are doing very well. Our jump, when we signed our lease in 2020, we moved the flour mill over in March of 2021. We completely renovated our portion of the building, new floors, new walls, you know, as much as we could possibly do, and quite a bit of equipment as well, because both malting and milling is a lot of capital investment in equipment. And it's just been wonderful. Both businesses, you know, when we get new business, it's much easier for us to grow because we have this beautiful space. And so we certainly want to make sure that we own the space, and luckily our landlord wants to facilitate that for us. And so we're just like one of those companies that's kind of, we're not, I wouldn't say rapidly growing, but we're seeing very good growth very steadily. And we want to continue to do that. And obviously purchasing the building is kind of a priority for us because of all the investment that we're making. If you guys have seen the silos going by, you know, putting those in was kind of like a marker in the sand. We were like, we're here, we're not leaving. So anyway, yeah, we've just been, you know, really happy to be in the city. As we thought, the utilities and everything that we need a lot of water and electricity and sewer to run our businesses, and it's just all very, you know, accessible for us. So anyway, we're just here tonight to, you know, answer any questions that you have about our business or our growth or our values. And, you know, 100% of our grains are sourced from the Northeast. Quite a bit of corn and grain comes from the Connecticut River Valley. So we're not only are we trying to support local jobs through our manufacturing process, but also just trying to support a local economy of, you know, the local farms that we're buying our raw materials from.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's great. Really appreciate it. Love to hear the story. And just fun facts. We met when I was working in planning and economic development with John many, many years ago when you were first looking at Holyoke. So it's nice to see you here and also how long it takes. So
Yeah. Well, we don't have to meet in an attic anymore, thanks to Holyoke. We can actually meet in a real office.
we love that for you. That's great. I'm going to pause and see if who on the council has questions. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Chair. And Andrea, Christian, welcome. We much appreciate your presence here in Holyoke. I'll start by saying I'm a very big believer in a TIF as a tool for bringing business, bringing manufacturing, bringing commercial development into the city and allowing people to spend and to invest money as we give the city, what we're allowed to do, a break in property tax. So I just, I appreciate, and I just want to make sure I understand the particulars here. The portion of the building you're going to occupy is 51%. You do occupy it, or you will occupy it.
Correct.
And that's the TIF, John, will only apply to the 51%?
Yes, sorry, go ahead, Marie.
Yeah, it's an STA. I do just want to clarify that because there's just a slight difference between that and the TIF, since the TIF is on new value and the STA is on its existing value. But yeah, they're already occupying that, and it's only on that 50%.
I still believe it's a good tool, Marie. You're getting technical with me, So the 51%, and is it still Western Mass will remain in the rest of the building? Western Mass Elders?
Yes. They have, at least I know they just recently signed a 10-year lease and are also making a lot of leasehold improvements to the property, both in the offices and with Meals on Wheels.
Okay. And the purchase of the property is part of this, but are you the one, is it new equipment that you're talking about here in the 1.5 million machinery and equipment?
Yes, we pinpointed kind of specifically the second germination bin, which is part of our malting process that will double the amount of product that we can malt. We have the ability to actually add to that 3 more times. So each time will be within the space that we have, we can add 3 more germination bins, which probably we're hoping will happen over the course of the next decade. But we're already ready for our second one in late 2024, early 2025.
Okay, I think I may have misunderstood. The reason I ask is because you kind of said your growth would, potential growth is there, but I think that's good growth, not just potential growth, if that's what you're projecting. 2025, what would the new construction be about?
It would just be the installation of a germination bin.
All right, now I need Marie to explain to me what that is.
Well, I could explain it to you. It's an additional piece of equipment.
I got Marie laughing, Andrea. You can't see her face.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Long day.
I appreciate you know what it is and what you need it for. I appreciate that you're bringing business jobs.
And this actually isn't part of the application because we just received notice about a month ago, but we did receive a food infrastructure grant through the state to put in a commercial bakery into the space in 2024. Which will be an investment. It's going to roughly be an investment of $350,000. And that's going to allow us to do more value-added products and also incubate other businesses that want to have small baking companies.
That sounds fantastic. My final question, John, Marie, either one of you, just remind us how OPED oversees the growth here, the development here, and the, we'll call them promises, but part of the agreement here.
I can respond, Marie. At a minimum, the company will need to do a report not only to the state, but copy the city on that. But our intent is to have more frequent check-ins with the company, just see how things are going. But at a minimum, it's an annual report that the company provides, because it's not only the city monitoring the project, it is the state. I should have mentioned earlier about the program. We used to do quite a few of these programs going back 5-10 years and plus. So this is the first project we've had in a few years. And the program is really a partnership between the private company, the city, and the state. The state sets the guidelines, the city has our requirements, but as far as reporting and monitoring, that's an OPED function in conjunction with the state.
Thank you, John. And I lied. I got one more question. Andrea, you use city water now and will be using city water?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you and welcome. You have my support, and I think this is fantastic and great for you and great for the city. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bartley?
I have this question, this is to the chair. John, this is to John Dijek. John, why do the applicants need a special tax assessment? Why do they need it at all?
I think what we have gathered from the discussions in the application is there's significant expenses over the next year as the acquisition process transpires, and so some upfront expenses that that this program will really help them achieve and then take it beyond there. So basically, to help them get established, and we when we started this, when the company got into the building, and when we met with the state about 3 years ago, the request was there at that time. Just because financially it's a big undertaking for the company, and at that point in time, in consultation with the state, the Mass Office of Business Development, the recommendation was made. It works a lot better once you're about to purchase the building rather than when you're a tenant. So in a nutshell, it's really to help them get established and get their foundation set in the city.
And just through the chair to the applicants, I always say thank you, and I'll always say thank you for anybody investing in the city of Holyoke, and you're no exception. Just relative to this, which I think amounts to a fairly modest tax break, based upon the savings that you should realize from the tax break and the commercial rate, what is it that you think what more do you think you'll accomplish with this tax break?
Well, as John mentioned, we are at a kind of a critical point in our business where we are seeing a lot of growth. And we still, where we might need to invest in equipment right now, we also really want to secure the building and make sure that all of the investment that we have put into the building is something that we have, secured. But there are things that as lessees, we haven't been able to do to our portion of the building because we're not owners. And, I think that we're looking at, things that the building really needs that, as a young and growing business, it would be hard to invest in things like new windows and stuff like that. But having some sort of support from the city like this would really help us to, invest in the building more. And just, during this kind of tentative time where we are, Chris and I are the only owners of the company. And, we don't come from any kind of significant wealth. So, this is a big step for us. And any type of support that we can receive from the city would be, giving us a little bit of a leg up, I guess, would be the easiest way to put it.
Yeah, that was kind of the answer I was hoping you would give relative to the tax break. I think it's a modest one. We've had other ones in the past. We haven't made these in a few years, and I generally don't like them, but there's always exceptions to every rule, and especially when I think that there's going to be a unique kind of business for the city, such as yours. There's probably going to be and you have experience. This isn't just your first month on the job. It sounds like you're going to be newer property owners. Is that accurate? Would this be your first commercial building?
This will be our first commercial building, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Yeah, where are you in the process of purchasing it? I mean, how far along? I mean, you have financing. Have you signed a contract? But where are you in that regard?
Yeah, we're all kind of just waiting on, we're working with Mass Development. So yeah, we have a bank that has been our partner through all of this. We have financing. We're just waiting for some Mass Development paperwork, and we're hoping to sign, we're looking at getting appraisals in the next several weeks, and everybody's communicating and moving forward. Mass Development has all of our paperwork. They're going to partner with our bank. And our landlord wants to close right around January 15th.
Yeah, that's great news. So ultimately, I'll support it, and the reason I'll support it is based upon your answer to my initial question, but also, and that answer tells me that the investment you put into the building will ultimately increase the value of the assessed value of the building, and ultimately, with the project that John and Aaron have brought to us, that the city will not only have new businesses and a more diverse commercial base, will have a higher valued building, and then we'll ultimately get the investment back through a higher assessed value to your property. That's theoretically how it's supposed to work. Other ones haven't worked quite that well, and we've been frustrated by it, but I'm going to support this, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up, we are, take a lot of pride in what we do and the quality of our product and just the way things look. And so, I think our plan is to have this building looking as beautiful as ever.
Thank you. Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. I just have a quick technical question because I'm not familiar with the special tax assessment. I guess it would be through the chair to John. So in a situation like this, does the state have to approve it as well as the city? Because for a TIF, it's just the city, right?
In both instances, Counselor, it is, as soon as our process is approved, there's a separate process with the state. So whether it's an STA or a TIF, it's all part of the Economic Development Incentive Program. So they have to, Christian and Andrea and Valley Malt are kind of concurrently working with our Mass Office of Business Development representative to put forward their application, which will be heard by the state, I think, third week of September. So, so there is an approval process with the state because as part of this program, there is also the potential for state tax incentives, which we're not privy to what those could be, but there is a possibility for the company to obtain some tax credits that way. A different structure, but it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's really a three-party agreement: the company, the state, and the city.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I won't ask anybody to repeat anything because I think it sounds like a worthy project, and I'd call it a win-win.
Thank you. Councilor McGivern?
John, I think I know the answer, but just this would kick in, we can adopt it, but this would kick in upon the purchase of the property?
It would. I believe it would begin in the following fiscal year. So if the company purchases the building in January, starting with fiscal year 25, it would start.
Cool. And just in my defense, you gave us a summary of items 3 through 7, one-page summary, correct?
Correct.
Well done. We appreciate that. Your opening line is all 5 items are TIF programs. I fully understand that 4 and 5 are STAs, but I read the top line. So Marie, get off my case.
Yeah, I think it's always referred to, whether it's an STA or it's known as the TIF program. So thank you.
Classic. I would like to, I see Councilor Maldonado Velez has his hand up, and I also see that Councilor Puelo has joined us and has his hand up. So Councilor Maldonado Velez first, and then Councilor Puelo.
Sorry. Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to Andrea and Christian for their investment in the city. Not only in their business, but they are there are business owners that also involve themselves in the community, are supportive of the arts and everything else. So I'm definitely, in support of this. I do have more technical questions, I guess, for through the chair to John and Marie. The two questions that are coming up for me is like, what is the difference between an SDA and a TIF, and how is it determined as to what the business that's?
So like an STA is the special tax assessment on like an existing property, where like a TIF, a tax increment financing, would be like on if someone is doing new construction. So it's just that little difference because they're purchasing an already built structure.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's determined just by the building up. Thank you for that. And then I guess my last question, how many TIFs and SDAs do we currently have in the city? Is there a number that we know, or?
I'd have to refresh, but I believe we're at 3 or 4 active TIFs, maybe more on the 3 side. There was a summary provided, I think, last September to the council. I can recirculate that, but we're at about 3 or 4. And as I mentioned earlier, quite a few years back, we would have a more frequent program, but right now about 3.
Cool. Thank you. That's really all the questions I had that were coming up for me. I think all the other councilors had the questions that helped answer everything else. Good luck to Andrea and Christian. Look forward to seeing the project and how it all comes out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Puello?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just really quickly, I'm looking through the paperwork and I'm just trying to figure out when the TIF ends. I joined a little late, so I don't know if I missed that part.
So it's a 5-year schedule. So 5 years after it starts the following fiscal year after the sale goes through. So if it goes January 24, as John said, it would start fiscal year 25, and then it would go for 5 years following that.
5 years, okay, thank you. That's a little bit, but okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, it's incrementally declining each year, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, so the first
that, but I
year
want to make that clear.
50%.
Yep.
And then the next year it's 40%, 30%. So each year the city gets incrementally more taxes.
Yep. Great.
That helps, thank you.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve it, but I want to amend the order because I want to approve it contingent upon the city council receiving the annual reports, because I never got one annual report for the one that's coming next. So I'll approve I want to make a motion to approve this recommended adoption. It's full city council contingent upon the city council getting the annual reports from the petitioner.
I'll second that.
Open for discussion. Any discussion? See, Jose, Councilor Maldonado, you're done, right? Your hand's not up again? Got it. I did that last night, so I got you. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. So Andrea and Christian, what will happen next, this gets referred to the full city council. Our next meeting is the 3rd of September, I believe. And then the full council will vote on it. So we thank you for your time and for your investment, and hope to look forward to seeing what you do.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Make sure I think it's just one at a time. I'll make a motion to take 5 off the table, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 5 is that the City Council approves the amendment to the special tax assessment agreement with Aegis Energy Services, Agenco, and Jackson Canal LLC for the development that occurred at 55 Jackson Street and 84 Sargent Street, now known as 59 Jackson Street. The STA was originally approved by the City Council on January 19th, 2016. And this evening, we have from the Planning and Economic Development Office to let folks know Aaron Vega has joined us. So thank you for being here. We're also still joined by John and Marie, and we're joined by the owner this evening, Lee Vardakis. So Thanks everyone for being here. And we have the packet that was provided to us by the Planning and Economic Development Office. A lot of history here, and a unique situation for some of us. So I want to give the opportunity for OPED to introduce this order, and then we'll. Mr. Vardikis is here, so we'll have an opportunity for folks to have a dialogue. John or Aaron, Marie, I don't know who wants to kick us off.
I can probably start since I have the most background with the project. And Aaron and Marie and Jane, please add. But I think there's, as Councilor Murphy-Romboletti mentioned, there is quite a bit of background, and but I think what I think is most important initially to get across is that the company has been a great partner in this project. The project has changed per the original terms. However, it's important to stress that the investment promised by the company and the job creation, the investment was met and surpassed. The job creation was attained. Or it has fluctuated, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but was attained. But there have been some changes with the company and the project. And in a nutshell, when we were doing, and if any of the councilors, I'm sure many of the councilors recall what Parsons paper was for the city for a number of years. It was a very difficult situation. And Mr. Vardikis bought what was the former service machine building on Jackson Street, probably around 2005. And actually, I could be mistaken in the time frame, but actually we did a TIP or a special tax assessment at the time when that company was bought, and actually HEDIC helped finance that project also, and it was terrific. I mean, all the commitments were met and exceeded. And so I just wanted to make sure that is really a key point that I want to get across. What the company got involved with, and where we are today with that building is a complete turnaround, because I was in it about a month ago with Aaron, and the building itself, which is very hard to believe because the last remaining structure on the Parsons property is rehabilitated and renovated and to is modern, a manufacturing and an office facility that I think we have in the city. So it's really a testament to what Mr. Vardikis did. With that said, at the time when we were doing the project, it was a very complicated project. We were charged to find a way to address the what I would call a disaster at the Parsons Paper project, and so we cobbled together as much funds as we could from different sources. Mass Development was a large source. They contributed $2 million as a grant, and then we cobbled together a variety of other funding. But at the end of the day, we were $400,000 short, and at the time we did not know where to turn for that additional $400,000. So we turned to the company and said, "Can you contribute as an acquisition price the $400,000?" And as a way to, because the company was going to invest in the rehabilitation, and the idea was that we were going to transfer the property at no cost because it was such a challenging property. And so basically, what we did an estimate at the time that if we did a special tax assessment for not only the Parsons property but the existing property at 55 Jackson, over a 10-year period, it would equate to the $400,000. So the owner would, and we did this arrangement where actually the owner financed that $400,000 through the redevelopment authority with, again, many steps. As HEDIC was involved because HEDIC was the funding source. And the project took several years to accomplish, and the benefit didn't start until I believe fiscal year 2022, where the company finally realized the tax incentive. And what happened over the years is the value increased, and our initial estimate done with the assessors was very much underestimated. And what we found was that the benefit in the first year was about $100,000 in tax relief. same in the second year, and we're now entering the third year of their benefit. What has transpired, a couple of things. One is the company consolidated into 59 Jackson Street, which is the former Parsons building, and we're intending to lease out the other property. There was a marijuana company that was being proposed there for a period of time, and I understand that did not proceed, but that there are other potential companies looking at that space. But because of the vacancy there, and Mr. Vardakis also no longer is the owner of the business. He does own the real estate that leases to the existing company. The benefit is still flowing to Mr. Vardakis, and part of this is to try to meet the commitment presented when Mr. Vardakis, agreed to contribute the $400,000 to the project. So what we're proposing is, because of one of the buildings is vacant, we came up with a schedule that we think, working with the law department, reviewing it with the mayor, we came up with a potential amendment that reduces the schedule from a total of 10 years to a total of 5 years, and would only be applicable to the portion of the property that is occupied. And we think that is a solution to recoup the $400,000. But again, it would only be applicable if the property is occupied and owned by Mr. Vardakis. So there's a lot there. I tried to summarize it as best I could in a very short period of time. But I guess I'll stop there and just, if in case Aaron or Jane have anything to add.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure. Nope. Okay, never mind. Sorry, Counselor Vacant.
So I have one question right now. So what if the property becomes occupied? How would that affect this?
If the property is occupied and continued to be owned by Mr. Vardakis, the benefit would continue. We're still proposing a shorter term, just because the amount of the annual relief on taxes is much more substantial than originally estimated. And then secondly, also because the terms of the original agreement have changed. We are not working with the employer. The employer is a different company. As I said, Mr. Vardakis owns the property. However, he doesn't own the business any longer and cannot represent the jobs that are there. So I think if the property is occupied, it'll get, the proposal is it would continue to get its benefit for up to a period of 3 more years, basically, because we're already we're starting year 3 now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, through the chair. John, okay, this has been going on since, what year are we in with this company in terms of this TIF? I mean, we had a 10-year TIF with the company, correct?
Correct. It's the agreement with TIF, as with all the TIFs, is it doesn't take effect until after the project is completed in terms of the investment and getting a certificate of occupancy. So the actual benefit, although it's a 10-year TIF, it didn't start until fiscal year 2022. So just two years ago, we're starting the 3rd year of a 10-year schedule currently.
Okay, so the whole time from 2016 to 21 or 22, what was happening? They were reinvesting in the property and they were paying the commercial tax rate for that period?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, and so now we're in year. I'm sorry, John. You said you were in year 2 or year 3? We're
in year 3, starting year 3.
All right, and we want to shorten it from 10 years to 5 years.
That's what the proposal is. Yes.
Okay, so and to me, that sounds like there's going to be a benefit to the city. Am I correct in assuming that?
I should indicate that this is a proposal that staff has made working with the law department and the mayor. I think Mr. Vardakis will have a different perspective on he's indicated to me on this because, as I said earlier, the investment was made, the job creation was being attained, but the project has changed. And is it a benefit to the city? I think as it stands, the idea is to make this an equitable solution in terms of what the initial commitment was on the 400,000. So I think it's a fair solution, but that's me.
Well, let me rephrase it then. So would the city be better off having the TIF end at 5 years, or would the city be better off having it end at 10 years?
Well, it would be better off to end it at 5 years.
Okay.
Be less annual relief.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was driving at. Okay, and so I'm sorry, I just don't. This is Aegis, I know that. So the owner of the company is in what? He's in agreement at this point that we should shorten it to 5 years. Are both parties satisfied? Is that where we are?
No, this is a proposal we're putting forward that as of my last, we've had regular, periodic discussions with Mr. Vardakis in terms of what was happening at the property. Over the last several months, we've been discussing, potential modification to the agreement, and I think he is just maybe seeing this over the last, seeing the agreement maybe just recently, but the discussion about reducing the term probably for the last month or so.
So what? Okay, so just walk me through the process. So if we approve it here, what does the owner of Aegis appeal it? Does he appeal it to the Commonwealth, or how does it finally get adjudicated if he doesn't support it?
Yeah, it would, we would have to look at alternatives. I don't know what those are right now. We would have to check with the law department to see what direction we would go. But as I mentioned earlier, we're basing this as, just in terms of the original agreement, which has had some terms which we think have changed, and then we just have to see our options. This does also need to go to the state for approval, and the state is aware we are, pursuing this amendment.
All right, and you can document I think you did it for us, but you can document for the Commonwealth that the terms of the original agreement, even though they're being amended, they've changed, and that both parties were treated equitably. Is that your position, John?
I think that's the direction that we've been looking at. Yes, I think based on the original terms, that's the direction we're going.
Thank you.
Attorney Manchaleski, did you have your hand up in response to Councilor Bartley? Or are you good?
I was just going to say that, if he is aggrieved, then yes, he does have a process he can go through. It can involve the court system for some sort of declaratory action. Alternatively, the city also has its process to go through if the property owner is unable to agree to it. We can go back and attempt to have the project decertified in total. So there are options.
Okay. Councilor McGivern?
Thank you, Chair. John, you said most of the set out goals were met. Does that mean $6.9 million was invested into the building at 84 Jackson Street?
I believe it exceeded that, yes, upwards of 7 to 8 million. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it did, yeah.
That alone is fantastic with that tragedy of what happened to the Parsons paper mill property itself, even though most of that mill was not ever going to be used again. Saving one building and having an investment of that amount is incredible. I've said it over the years, I never fully understood why the STA applied to
55 Jackson.
55 Jackson, itself. But you've done your best explaining it to me, and I've always, come to grips with it because I think the ultimate goal is what you outlined here tonight. The job promises there were 65 existing jobs at 55, and I think there was a promise of an additional 30. You're saying that more or less we've met the job creation and retention?
I can't say that that's the level of the jobs there, but at a certain point over the last 5 years, they did meet that 30 additional jobs. I don't know the status of the employment at the company now.
If you could get that number for us, I'd appreciate it. And when was Aegis bought out, the former owners? When did the sale take place?
I believe, my notes indicate that it was about
2018.
2018.
Okay.
Yeah, there was, and at the time, there was a company called, it was a larger foreign company called Dalkia, and Mr. Vardakis remained, in my understanding, and just again, remained in a management position with the company for several years, and just recently no longer had an affiliation with the company.
Which company?
With Dalkia, the company that purchased the business.
Thank you. What was the price? What was the purchase price?
That was information we weren't provided or known to us. It was a private sale, I believe.
And to our law department attorney, Jane, it sounds like there'll be some type of recourse for the current owner and some type of defense for the city. Are we putting ourselves, by taking this vote, agreeing with this proposal, in any liability in terms of dollars, I guess?
If we vote, if the city council votes to approve this amendment, are we liable in with respect to, I guess, the payments that would otherwise be due, or would the benefit that he would be otherwise entitled to?
Anything above and beyond what the original agreement would be, would we assume any additional liability?
I don't believe so, but I think, that could definitely be researched, and I can take a look at it while the conversation is ongoing right now.
Thank you. And my final question is, if we don't agree to this proposal to reduce it to the 5 years, does the 10 years remain in effect?
Yes, the terms of the agreement would stand then, unless the city seeks to decertify the project with the state.
Okay. And it's just out of curiosity, when the ownership changed, doesn't that change the original agreement? Should that not have come back to the city for a vote?
That was my question.
Sorry.
No, I'm happy. I wondered.
There is a stipulation in the agreement that talks about notification, and I don't think it was beyond the notification requirement. As long as the commitments remained, and again, the commitments were made in terms of investment and jobs were being attained. So that was, and actually, part of this is when the potential marijuana business, we actually thought that actually may bring additional investment beyond what was already made, but that didn't transpire.
In 84 Jackson Street, when it comes back on full line for the purposes of property tax, what will that generate?
Approximately $80,000 annually. It's valued a little over $2 million currently.
Even after the $6.9 million investment?
That's the assessed value right now, about $2.1 million. The investment doesn't always equate to the property value.
Wow.
It's my understanding, and not just this case, in other cases.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bacon?
Yeah. Thank you, So John, just one more question. When I was looking over the paperwork, it seemed that it was the sale of the business that prompted this modification that you're proposing. Is that accurate?
I think part of it was also the occupancy and, you know, any new owner would have to come forward to us to be approved for the benefits. And there's just been, I think there's been some material changes with the ownership that really got our attention. And this, you know, we've been monitoring it for a few years and trying to get an understanding of where things were going. And you know, again, Mr. Rodriguez has been very responsive to us, but again, it ultimately came to looking at it that what was in the initial agreement in terms of the obligations of each party have changed. So we're trying to make this equitable where the original commitment on the $400,000, which was made by the company, is minimally covered in terms of the incentive.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay.
Well,
Just making sure I'm not missing other counselors. Okay. I think I have just one clarifying question. I hope I'm understanding everything right. So if we vote in favor of this, it gets referred to council and the council votes in favor. There's still the possibility that an agreement doesn't get signed. Is that correct? Maybe that's for the water department or John. Or...
This amendment, as it stands, and Jane, please add but the amendment needs to be agreed to by the company also, and if we don't come to those terms, I think we'd have to go back and look alternative ways to approach this.
Right. So I agreed with John. So if the company doesn't agree to sign it, then, you know, the city does have options. We can stick with 10 years. If we want to, we can seek to have the project decertified with the state so that the STA would go away. So there are options, yes, but the other other party to the contract would also need to sign.
Councilor Bacon?
So it seems to me, if I've got a grasp on this, that what we're trying to do is make the original owner whole with that 400,000, but not continue with the TIF or STA because the deal has changed so much that it's not the same agreement anymore because the parties are even different. So that's how it looks to me. It looks like you're trying to get to a win-win, but end the deal because it's no longer the same parties in the deal. Would that be accurate? And this is your best win-win that you're coming up with?
Yeah, you said it very well. I think we're trying to find a solution to a situation that has changed, that's fair to everyone.
All right. Well, I've heard enough, and I'm willing to make a motion that we recommend approving this.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? That's what I was supposed to do, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
You know the drill.
I do. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here, for having this discussion. And this is going to get referred to the full city council at our next meeting, which is the first week in September, the first Tuesday in September.
I make motion to. Do you want to do these separately, Madam Chair? 6 and 7? Are they together?
I think they're together.
Separate. Oh, 6 and 7, sorry.
Are they together?
Together?
John?
They're separate orders.
I'll take them. I'll make motion to take 6 off the table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 6. Yes. So it's not a public hearing.
Make a motion that we
On this matter?
reconsider our action
item-
on 5.
Okay.
And I certainly would vote to allow the owner to speak.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So going back,
Are we going back to 5?
Just 5.
Oh, I wasn't.
just 5.
I didn't know you, I'm sorry. I should
didn't
have
know.
guessed you were sitting here for a reason.
I assumed
We didn't
that
know.
you,
I'm not sure if, they cannot see you. I'm not sure if they even knew you were here. Yeah.
Well,
so please come in, have a seat. Yep, you
have
just,
to press
get a
the
green
button,
light.
Make sure the light's on. Yep.
Okay, it's on.
yes.
Thank you.
So just for the record, make sure you state your name and title and into the microphone. And introduce yourself and add anything or clarify what we've discussed this evening.
Sure. So my name is Lee Vardakis. I was the previous owner of Aegis Energy Services, and I'm still the current owner of Jackson Canal, the real estate company that owns 55 Jackson and 59 Jackson Street. I've been working with the OPED group since 2016 on this project. You know the history behind Parsons Paper, what we took and how we transformed the property. And we spent a significant amount of resources on this property to bring it to where it is today, which is really a model for the city, a model for industrial manufacturing here in Holyoke. I sat and listened to a lot of the conversation, and a couple of things come to mind. One is that the Jackson Canal is still a party to this agreement. It was a party to the agreement when we first started, back in 2016 when it was signed. And we're still a party today. The only people that are not present at the table anymore is Aegis Energy, because that was purchased by Dalkia, a French utility company. I'm no longer affiliated with the company, but I'm affiliated with the properties. I made the investment. I spent over $8 million on that property to redevelop it and make it to what it is today. And we did so at the time. There was a lot of consideration. It wasn't just the idea that we were going to invest $400,000 in the cleanup of the property and get a tax incentive, or the STA as it's called. This was more. That was part of the decision to move forward, was the STA. But I also had to make a leap of faith here, that A, I could complete the project, and B, that the city would stand behind the project over the duration of the 10 years. And I'm here today because I'm disappointed that we're even having this conversation today about changing the duration of the agreement. I can't, oh, sorry.
Well, I'll wait till you finish. I just had a question.
So when we look at the $400,000 number that we started with the way Marco and I and John first envisioned it, we thought that it would be roughly $20,000 per property, or $40,000 a year for 10 years, or $400,000. The only way it becomes more than that is if I make that $8 million investment. So today we're trying to recalculate the benefit of the STA on the new assessed value that exists only because I invested $8 million. The reality is, if I didn't invest $8 million, the property wouldn't even be on the tax roll, and we're back to the $40,000 a year, 20 for each property. So to say that I'm making me whole, it's whole on the fact that I invested $8 million now makes it whole a lot faster, but that was never the premise when we first started this agreement.
Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. So the $8 million that you invested was at the Parsons paper.
Yes.
And there were 2 parties in the original agreement. And now there were 3, right?
Yes.
Aegis,
Genco.
Jackson, and the city.
Yes.
But now Aegis is gone.
Correct.
So the parties have changed.
Yes.
So half of that, and I'm just trying to state out what I'm hearing. So one of the 3 parties is gone, so now the agreement is not what it was. So what we were hearing, or what I was hearing, was that they're trying to come up with a new agreement because the parties changed, that is a fair agreement because now there's only 2 instead of 3.
That's not why we're coming up with that's not why this agreement's being recommended. So,
why do you think it is?
to be honest, I'm not sure why we're even having the conversation about it. But
Well,
it's not because of you got to remember, the investment was made, the properties are now viable. It doesn't matter who the parties are to the agreement. It doesn't matter that the properties can be leased or in this case, leased to any entity going forward. So whether it's 55 or 59 Jackson, both those buildings can be leased out and will bring jobs to the city and they exist because I made that investment years ago.
And I hear you on that, but what I'm trying to understand is because now you sold one of them, right?
No,
Or it was sold.
The company was sold.
Not the property.
Not the properties.
The company.
The company was sold, yes.
Correct. So your point is that it's the property that is in the agreement, not the company?
At this stage, it is the property that's in the agreement because they were an original partner to this agreement, and they continue to be a partner to this agreement. So we no longer have Aegis in the picture anymore. But during the time the last several years, we met the obligations of employment, we met the investment in the property, and I think it's only fair to continue the agreement the way it stands today. To shorten the life of the agreement, which obviously benefits the city, harms me. Just over the fact that one of the parties is no longer a party to the agreement, the intent was there. We delivered what we said we would, which is unusual for a developer who does what he says. And that's what I did. And so I feel this is very unfair that we're even talking about changing the term of the agreement. Then, to add insult to injury, the fact that we're talking about shortening it and talking about occupancy as a term to receive the STA benefit is even more egregious because we have, at the time when the property is unoccupied, is a time when the landlord, in this case myself, is harmed because he's not collecting lease payments, and therefore yet he still has to make tax payments. So that is the hardest time to pay taxes, is when I don't have a tenant in place. If I was to sign this agreement today, one of the buildings is unoccupied. I'll call it in default to the STA if we were to proceed as today. So this, to me, that's even above and beyond the fact that we're shortening the duration of the agreement.
So just to clarify for me, in the initial agreement, because I'm not sure if I ever saw it or not, but in the initial agreement, is the named people in the agreement Aegis or you as the property owner?
Both.
Both. And so now Aegis is no longer part of it, so it's fundamentally changed. So I guess the debate would be, what is the fair change, because there were 2 properties involved, right?
2 owners. You mean the fact that we had
because it was Aegis and 55 Jackson, right?
There's Aegis and Jackson Canal, yes.
Right, but now Aegis is gone.
Yes, so it's just Jackson Canal.
Right.
It was an original partner to the agreement and still is, yes.
Right, so it seems to me your argument is about how the agreement continues for Jackson.
Yes, because they were original.
Because Aegis is no longer part of it.
Got to keep in mind, Aegis and Jackson were all owned by the same person.
But aren't anymore.
No longer, but they were.
But that's what has changed everything, right? Which is why we're talking about it?
I believe
is
so.
what I'm understanding.
That's one of the reasons.
So I guess the other debate about whether it's fair or not, we're having it presented to us after all this that's been going on as they think this is a fair thing. And then if, say, the council agrees with us and you don't, it still can be up for further debate as far as what we've heard tonight. We're just trying to come up with a recommended change to address the fact that the parties that were 3 are now 2. I'm not saying this is necessarily the perfectly
But
right answer, but that's.
Cutting the
what-
benefit in half is because we lost one party to the agreement does not seem equitable in any way, shape, or form. And taking the benefit that as I mentioned, the $40,000 per year for 10 years, which is what we expected, in saying that it's no longer valid because now it has an assessed value of $80,000 to $100,000, whatever the number is. That only exists because I made that investment. So I think we're talking apples and oranges here, and I'm concerned that this has been done in a vacuum. I wasn't part of developing this agreement. This is something that John and his team did, and I would never have agreed to this approach. So I'm here tonight because this is not going to end here.
Okay, so the options procedurally that we have, because we are still in the same meeting on the same matter, I mean, we can't do anything unless we all vote to reconsider our actions, which we could do now if we choose to.
Sure, yeah, and just to pause for a moment, I see there are multiple hands up and in person as well. So I do see that Aaron and John do have their hands up, so I want to let you know I see you. And I see you, Councilor McGivern.
Make a motion.
I am going to have you go first.
Thank you. We welcome and thank you for the investment. And I think you understand because, you've been here from the beginning. I've been here from the beginning. And it's a complex, from the start. There are things that I believed and still believe in made a lot of sense in this agreement between the city and yourself. We'll just look at it as property owner. The two things that I always had difficulty with was one, why the 100% tax break went to 55 Jackson Street, which I fully knew, was an occupied business at the time, became an even bigger occupied business when they just, moved in and took over. And that's fine. The $400,000 kind of is the curveball in this whole thing. And John pointed that out very accurately before. We had a piece of property, a burnt down, one of the oldest paper mills in the city of Holyoke that nobody was going to develop. Nobody was going to be able to pay for the cleanup, yet alone the development of it. And so a lot of it made sense. This is the only 10-year STA, the only 100% tax break for 10 years I've ever seen in the last 44 years that I've been here. So there are two sides to all the stories. I don't think, and I'm not going to speak for anybody else, we're not the negotiating team here. We're just, something comes in front of us, we say yay or nay. I think what we are hoping for, though, is you make some good, fine points, but there are also some other considerations, on behalf of the rest of the city and the taxpayers. Throughout, since 2016, the city has provided services to you, to the property, whether it be police, fire, the existence of all the services that the city, and we are, by state mandate, only allowed to collect property tax for the purpose of providing these services. So when we make these deals, again, this one's a little different with the $400,000, and which did benefit the city a lot, when you came forward with that, because Parsons Paper may still be a pound of, a heap of burnt down buildings sitting there if that didn't happen. And we certainly, not only appreciate that, but recognize that. But I'm just hoping that there is some ability to continue negotiations and continue the efforts to try to bring something, that makes sense to everybody here. Because we're all in the same boat. We want the jobs. And how many jobs are currently at 55 Jackson?
Well, at 55, there's no business at 55.
There's no business.
At 59, it was the last annual report shows that there was the 30 jobs were added and created. at the last report.
Okay.
And
So the old Parsons building is occupied. It's 55 that's not occupied.
that is correct.
Gotcha. All right. I'm not sure if I made any sense, but I appreciate you being here, and I am sorry we didn't recognize you at first. I thought you were for the next item coming up.
Sorry.
And like I said, on these hybrid things, no one from OBIC didn't even know you were here, I don't think, because they can't see you, because the cameras are all pointing at us.
Yeah, my intent was not to negotiate tonight. My intent was to come here to voice my displeasure with where we stand on this agreement, so that we could then go back to the table and come up with something that was more workable.
Yeah.
That was my intent of arriving tonight.
And we appreciate that. And we want, I for one, glad we heard your side of the story. But again, we can't negotiate. It's not that we don't want to, but we'd like to sometimes, I think, but, we're not allowed to. But I'm just glad we heard from you, and hopefully we can hear from some other people about what's going on.
Yeah, I think for me, I've seen TIFs come through, I've seen STAs come through, and I've not seen an amended version in this way. So I guess I'm trying to understand, council's role in this. We can't negotiate. But I do see Aaron's hand up. It's been up. So I want to give you the opportunity as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the councilors. And I think, I guess I'm going to focus on the curveball, as Councilman McGivern pointed out. And, I again, joined the chorus of appreciating Lee, met him back when I was state rep and at Aegis, and the building looks amazing. And obviously, when someone thinks they're going to put $6.5 million into a building, it's amazing. And of course, prices are always end up costing more. From someone who wasn't there at the beginning and just looking at stuff from the outside now, and currently, and in working with the counselors as we're looking at some of these new STAs and TIFs and trying to be much more strategic about them to work with you on these, it is my understanding. This is that another side of the story, if you want. It is about the 400,000. Assessed values obviously have gone up, right? And so that, absolutely, if it wasn't for the investment, the assessed value of that property would not have gone up. But my understanding is that the arrangement that was created, and it was very complex, and I hope to not bring one to you as nearly as complex while I'm in this seat, was to make him whole. And so based on the estimates that were done at the end of the day, the 10-year 100% was going to make him whole, the 400,000. Now those other factors that Lee's bringing up are all valid factors. I'm not going to debate those. I'm just talking about the idea was to make him whole in the 400,000. He makes his payments on time. Everything is kosher there. Everything is good. The reality is that now the assessed value is more, and it's almost $100,000 a year. So in the end, after 10 years, it's not going to be that $400,000 to make him whole, or a little bit more to kind of appreciate, the investment. It's going to be close to $1 million. And so that's the only correction we were trying to make. And so, again, there's all just appreciation for the investment there. The building is beautiful. It was just a correction based on the current values, understanding that, yes, he put in more than the 6.5, which was predicted to go in, but everything is more now. So that's the correction. And John and Lee have been talking. We follow up with him on the annual reports. We try to get, those annual reports together with him for the state. MOBD has been at the table with this. So MOBD has been talking to us. Obviously, Jane, Attorney Mentaleski has been with us on this. So, I just want to kind of put that context in there too, because I don't think anyone on the council or from our office is, not grateful and thankful for that investment and that crazy complex deal that my predecessor and John and team was able to put together and make it happen. And it's amazing, but now it's just sort of a look back and just sort of a correction. I fully understand Lee's perspective. Mr. Vardagas has been a good business person in the city for a long time. And I get that he spent more, so I think it's less about, the different companies that are involved or this or that, because he still owns the property. And again, the tip is with that property because it's the property tax. So that's the key. And again, our only presentation to you is to sort of right that ship to still make him whole, understanding again, obviously that Mr. Vardagas would like to, get some of his other additional investment back. I mean, I don't blame him for that. So, we can come back if the council decides to. But again, the idea of this, what John presented and Attorney Mentaleski presented today was to still honor the intent of the original agreement, which from my understanding was to make that 400,000 average number completed. So I just put that back in perspective. It's less about the fact that Aegis isn't there, because Lee still does own the property. And the TIF, if you will, the SJ is on the property. So just putting that on, again, John, correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but I think I just want to put that other perspective on it, that we're not, not unappreciative, but also, have heard from you, the council, many times about certain TIFs, and this one's come up. And so again, as we're approaching you with other TIFs, and again, a 50% TIF, even the one that was tabled today, does not start at 100%, does not go for 10 years. Like, we're very mindful of the message that you've sent us in LPED and want to work with you on this stuff. So this was, again, answering your call on some of these issues as well.
Gotcha. And John, I see your hand up.
Yeah, and I as Aaron said, thanks to Mr. Vardakis. I mean, I cannot overstate the amount of effort that went into work that project, this project, where we're at today. But I can say that we went into this amendment with the approach that the agreement terms have changed. The agreement early on indicated a certain investment. We knew what it was estimated at that point. But it also talked about a continuing commitment to create and sustain a certain level of employment, and that has changed. So there have been changes, but completely open to having further discussions to try to come up with a solution that is acceptable to Mr. Vardakis and hopefully the council that gets us to where we need to be, because it was a tremendous project. Again, the amount of effort and investment by the company and Mr. Vardakis was tremendous, and so again, happy to go back and try to come back with an alternative to this.
Okay. Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, I've been kind of sitting back and listening to this. I was involved with this. I chaired this committee at the time, so we approved it. I will say that was, to my recollection, that was the last one that I told Marcos it was the last one I would ever approve of that nature, and I haven't seen one come up before me until tonight. I'm going to say that one thing that didn't get said tonight is that but for the 400,000, does any of this even happen? Is that building built? Is the business sold? And I assume it was for a massive profit. I assume somebody made a lot of money doing this. Now, why is this before us without any? I don't want to answer either. This is all rhetorical. Why is this before us without prior discussions at OPED? Were discussions offered? Did somebody reach out? I'm going to guess that they did. I don't think this was done in absentia. I'm going to guess somebody reached out and somebody ignored it or didn't take it seriously. But now it's here. And so I'm ready to move this forward. Now, we can move it forward to City Council if we get a communication from Mr. Dijak and Mr. Vega, and I appreciate them not bringing this before us, but any more of these before us. And I said earlier for the prior discussion, I don't support these generally. There are exceptions. And after this was the last one, and I said it to Mr. Morero at the time, this is it. I don't want any more. And what happened as a result? We got a couple fantastic projects with Mira Vista and with the Behavioral Health Center, full commercial tax-paying entities, created hundreds of jobs, and the city gets the full freight. Didn't have to give a tax break. So it worked, and it's mainly, I'm not taking a bow here, I'm saying mainly credit to OPED, but I'm saying it worked. Now here we are. The gentleman got the $400,000 benefit. The gentleman built the business. The gentleman sold the business. The gentleman, I'm going to pretty well assume, made a handsome profit on it. And now we're coming back, and we realize from the city's end, this deal isn't so great. And we have an argument to say to the Commonwealth, this deal isn't so great. Now, that stuff should have got figured out between the two of you before it even came here tonight. But here we are. That's not a me problem. That's a you problem. So I'm going to suggest that we move this along. If we hear something, if the chair, mainly the chair, hears something different between now and Tuesday's meeting, fine. We'll table in committee or we'll send it back to OPED. But we still have 5 more things on this agenda. I say let's just move this along. And we heard from the petitioner, we heard from everybody that wanted to speak. I think it's time to move it on. Thank you.
Okay.
I agree. I'd like to make a motion to take up the next item. Item 6.
Second.
Wait.
We have nothing before us other than we heard the petition.
Oh, I thought we had a motion to reconsider. I thought.
We did not make a motion.
No,
Motion was made.
And seconded.
wasn't voted on.
I didn't say it was voted on, it was made. We have discussion on that. There was a motion on the floor, is what I'm saying.
Do you want to withdraw the motion, or do you want to vote on it?
I want to ask some further discussion.
Oh, okay. Okay.
John and Aaron, Aaron, did I?
Microphone.
Sorry. Aaron, first of all, Aaron, I want to point out this is an STA, not a TIF. That was pointed out to me earlier. I know someone's going to correct me, but not correct our boss. Second, did I hear you, and I'm only kidding about that part, Marie, did I hear you say you might want to try to tweak this a little bit more?
I don't, but if you're not going to pass it, then I just thought that was the option. If that's what the council, as to Council Bartley or to Council Vacant, if you guys don't pass it, I guess that we would be forced to. But this is what, when working with the assessor and working with the attorneys, our law department, this is what we came up with. So, and John and Lee have been talking, but I know that Lee's given his point. So, if you don't pass it, we'll have to go back, right? I guess that would be to Council Bartley's, either we go forward with this, or if you don't, then we will have to go back to the drawing board and figure another option out.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion?
Just as the maker of the motion, and after listening to Mr. Rodriguez, I think we do have to get it in front of the full city council and let the full city council make a decision, not so much on adopting or, well, it would be adopting or sending it back for more negotiation. But that's I think it's the only options that we really have at the moment, because we cannot negotiate, and we cannot, I think Lee made some good points. I think there are a lot of good points on both sides. I think Aaron and John summed it up perfectly, and perhaps, between now and, is it next week? No, the week after.
Following week, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have no problem moving it forward to the full city council with that in mind, that perhaps we can get some, in the meantime, some negotiation, Aaron, if you could, or some discussion.
So where's the motion? Withdrawn?
I'll withdraw the motion to reconsider. We haven't voted on it.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion, take number 6 off the table.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Item 6 is that the city council hereby decertify the certified project and the tax increment financing agreement with Canal Row, and request decertification of the certified project by the Massachusetts Economic Assistance Coordinating Council. The certified project and TIF agreement were originally approved by the City Council on October 5th, 2021 for the planned commercial development on land bound by Race and Main Streets. This is also a first for me, so I'm gonna let Aaron, or I see you're off mute. Do you want to kick us off here?
Sure. So again, as always, appreciate the support of the State Council. This was tied to a Canal Road project on Race Street. The current owners own the Cubit and also the Armor Building, which they're rehabbing. There was a hope for a really great project there. It was tied. This was done in conjunction with what would have been at the state level, the HDIP, the Housing Development Incentive Program, that would be for market rate housing. Unfortunately, the legislature still has not funded that. Hopefully, it'll be funded in September. Our arrangements with the possible purchase and sale had expired through HRA, and so we're just cleaning up our books. We are going to re-put that property out for RFP at some point, so we're just cleaning up the books. That project is not going forward. We've talked to the owners, or the potential owners, which is not, the project is not going forward. They no longer have an option on the property with the HRA at this point. So again, just clean up our books and hoping that the When we put it back out there, we'll get another equally great investment idea, and hopefully the state will have their HDIP program funded, and we can tie those together for some additional market rate and affordable housing units there on Ray Street.
I'll make a motion to approve the OPED suggestion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All those in, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Make a
opposed?
motion to take number 7 off the table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 7, that the City Council hereby decertify the certified projects in TIF agreement with AACO Realty Corporation and request decertification of the certified project. The certified project and TIF agreement were originally approved by the City Council on November 7th, 2016 for the planned redevelopment project known as the Canal Gallery at 380 Dwight Street. Aaron? Similar?
This one goes farther back. Obviously, at that point, they were considering housing development there, mixed-use housing development. Due to some construction issues that would have to be done there for housing, the cost got even more. And so, as you know, they changed their focus and obviously have a cannabis industry there. So this project is completely done. So again, just clean up the books and work with the new MOBD Western Mass area director. We're just trying to get our books cleaned up and be able to move forward.
Make a motion to accept OPED's recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved.
Motion to take, what do you want to do with this, Madam Chair? Are they all one? Well, I'll take 8 off the table.
Second.
Why complicated?
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
So item number 8 is that the City Council, in accordance with the Holyoke Redevelopment Authority Urban Renewal Plan, which was originally approved by the City Council December 4th, 2012, and DHCD on February 5th, 2013, vote to approve the transfer of the properties listed below to the Holyoke Redevelopment Authority for consideration of $1. And this is, just want to make sure I have the right one in front of me.
High Street.
High Street, there we go.
Yeah, 2 of them.
2?
Yeah. 2 vacant parcels.
Aaron, do you want to?
Sure. So, yeah, two vacant parcels that are in the urban renewal plan. And now that we have the TDI fellow in mass development looking at High Street, we believe that there will be an opportunity to get these properties used again, hopefully sold, but definitely activated. And so as we look to some of the things we're trying to get in line for next spring, summer on High Street with the TDI fellow and our other efforts with the HRA, these 2 properties were identified, and we believe that we can help utilize these properties and hopefully get them into tax-paying hands. So asking to have these ready to be transferred over to the HRA.
Thank you. Councilor Bartley?
Aaron, thank you for being here, of course, and bringing these up. The more the merrier, of course. You know that's how I feel. But would you just walk me through, you or John, why is it that we need HRA to do this as opposed to OPED just putting this out on its own? Why do we have to transfer it to HRA? And then when it's sold, tell us what happens with the proceeds of the sale. So just remind me of how that works, please.
Sure. Well, one of the main issues with these 2 lots is the question of whether they are really buildable. So some of what we may be doing is activating the space temporarily with things that we're seeing other TDI districts. It could be a food truck area. It could be other things that we're getting that area activated and then hopefully be able to sell them. So there's there'll probably some lag time in between. We're not just going to put these off RFP tomorrow because High Street's not ready for private investment. We've got to sort of massage it a little bit more. And so this is part of our longer term plan. So HRA is in a better position to be able to work out just lease agreements as we've seen, and just sort of be able to work with partners in that way, particularly mass development. So we're hoping to put these out, but we have plenty of other properties that we're trying to get out to the tax rolls and a lot of other people interested in other properties. So these might be more of a temporary activation use that the HOA will be able to do to kind of attract other businesses and other development. We're seeing now, even as some of the buildings on High Street have gotten funds to fix up their facades, other property owners are trying to do the same. We're seeing much more with the Flex Squad address some of the social issues, if you will, on High Street. I know the Board of Health is doing a great job at some of our hot spots along High Street, particularly High and Cabot Street area. So this is sort of getting this area ready for private investment, and it's going to take a little more massaging for that. So HRA is in a better position than just OPED itself to sort of work with partners in that way.
Just to follow up with that, Aaron, so thank you for that answer. Do you feel as though it's going to get developed faster and become a property tax paying entity sooner through HRA, or is that what you're telling me by doing this? You're going to see some activity on those lots prior to with HRA holding title as opposed to the city holding title? I hope that's what you're telling me, because why would we not do that? Why would we do this otherwise?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That's the hope. A lot of the properties that as you saw last time at the last DGR meeting with Jamie, a lot of the properties that we're putting out there for sale, we're not doing through the HRA. We're doing it properly through the city, and so HRA is a sort of supporting role, and our OPED's a supporting role with the purchasing department. And so it's really only those ones that are in the urban renewal plan, and really those ones like these that the private market is just not going to buy into. I don't want to call anybody out right now on meeting, but you drive down High Street, you see the empty buildings. We know some of them are long-standing properties, long-standing businesses that have been out for a long time. Private investment's just not coming in right now. And so it's coming in other areas. We see the private investment, obviously, down on Appleton Street with Wind Development. We see it on Registry. We're seeing it on Lyman Street. High Street's still struggling, and so we think that it takes a little more attention than just putting out to RFP and selling the property, which we often do with the city. As we mentioned, we have 5, I think, properties out right now, including Newton Street and other places. So this is really just sort of more like, this is going to take more massaging than just putting it out to an RFP to try to sell it.
Okay, so when it's sold, where ultimately when it's sold, where do the proceeds wind up? So we transfer it to HRA, and then HRA sells it for X. Where does the X dollars wind up?
I believe the HRA. I'm pretty sure that the HRA properties stay with the HRA and the city properties go to the city, I believe.
I'm pretty sure they do. So I guess my point is, why would we? Well, let me ask you a different way.
The redevelopment authority is trying to get things done. I think it's a tool. It's our tool in the toolbox that we're trying to. And we don't have any. We don't have many funds. We're getting a little bit of money from the wind development, but that's not being sold for very much. I see your point.
Well, let me change it. Aaron, let me change. Let me just ask a different way. Okay, because I want to support this, and I do support this, and I want to support your office, as I've always supported OPED when Marcos was there. Generally, I pretty much supported everything that came before us from Marcos and your office. But just hypothetically, if these and the next orders, if these properties are still in HRA world, Joe's talked about this innumerable times, 2, 3, 4 years down the road. What are we gaining? So if HRA is sitting on them for multiple years, Aaron, do we have the possibility to claw it back and figure it out a better way? I know we're all the same people. I get it, but I know it's all it's not HRA is not this big invisible cult. But I just want to get them on the tax rolls. That's the only point I'm driving at, as fast as possible.
I agree. It's just not that easy. We have tons of city property we love getting the tax rolls. The difference, I think that the main difference, I guess, to your point, is that the HRA has a plan with the urban renewal plan, and the HRA is different than the city in that if we want to talk directly to a developer to say, we want a grocery store here, we want to do housing here, we want to do a multi-story residential and commercial on the ground floor, we can do that more with the HRA as opposed to the city with procurement issues. I guess that's where you're going. Why is the HRA need property? Because they're able to work directly with the urban renewal plan, directly to what the citizens and the electeds had discovered that we wanted to see in the city, and we have the tools to do that directly as opposed to a general RFP, which there's obviously Mass General Law that dictates that, and Jamie, does a great job with all of that. HRA has different procurement laws that can go directly to a developer, you can go directly to another business and work directly and say, this is what we'd like to have happen here, and get it on the tax rate.
All right, my last question, thank you for your patience. My last question is just not quite just a comment. I want to hear from you or your office. you should probably provide, similar to what we do with the abandoned rehabbed properties, that there's a report provided by that with the receivership program. We should probably get some kind of feedback relative to, when we took these votes to transfer to HRA, how long they've been sitting there, and then ultimately what the plan is. Because, if we don't hear from your office, Aaron, and we have to claw this stuff, it makes it kind of hard. So if you could, as a department head, if you could sort of, bundle these together and report back to City Council on some kind of regular basis with a communication as to where these are, that would be somewhat helpful.
So two quick comments, I think, to that. So you have, and I know we've been trying to schedule a meeting for a couple months now. You have last year's annual report, and we're going to have a new one to you in 2 months or so. So we do, that's included in the HRA annual report. So definitely, we're looking to schedule to get the former chair and the new chair of the HRA to this committee and talk about that last year's report. To your point, though, another thing, these aren't sitting in HRA. They're ready to transfer. We don't take them till we have a plan. So if the city decides, and we would part of that, if there's another option, we can go with that. So they're not sitting in HRA. They're just ready to transfer. We don't transfer them until there's a plan. So we're not sitting on them. So if the city decides, hey, those other properties, we still want to put them up to RP, regardless of HRA, we can still do that. We don't transfer them after, hopefully, your vote next on the 3rd. They'll be ready to transfer. So we don't take them, we don't hold on to them. If the city decides, let's do something different, we can have that conversation. So we don't, they're like flagged to come over, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor McGivern, and then I see Councilor Puelo.
Thank you, Chair. Aaron, I just two quick things. I agree, with the transfer. It makes sense. I think it fits into the redevelopment, the urban renewal plan itself. And I understand the way HRA works, and it is a slow process, which I think is, I don't want to say frustrating, but certainly we understand it's slow. But one point Councilor Bartley makes, and I think maybe not tonight, but down the road, we might want to see if we can discuss it and amend some things, similar to what HEDIC did when we made the deal with the gas and electric after they acquired all the property in the dam sale from the former Holyoke Water Power Company itself. And you know the deal, we're at the end of it. There's maybe one or two parcels left, where if he could develop it, we would share with the sale of the property with the gas and electric, and the development with the developer themselves. And it worked good. It worked on some properties very well. Some properties it's still kind of stagnant, like on the one on Whiting Farms Road. However, the caveat was, if the gas and electric had a potential buyer that they wanted to sell the land to, HEDIC would return the land immediately to the gas and electric, and they would sell it. We'd have a little compensation from that, but it was a good deal. It made sense on both sides. Maybe we can do something with HRA in the future along those lines. And the other thing too is, dollar per property. I think we gotta up that up to at least $1.50 per piece of property, all right?
I'll meet you $2, but I guess I don't disagree. I mean, I'm open to that. I don't know the Mass General law around that piece, so we could definitely work with our attorney, our law department, and figure something like that out. I would say, the other piece is, we're all thinking about the long term, right? So we're not out there selling property. You saw a couple of them the last go around. We were asking for the assessed value. But again, we know the development costs. You had Liam there. He predicted $6.5 million 5 years ago, and it cost $8 million. Development costs are going up. The HRA's goal isn't to make money. The HRA's goal is to get developed, to get back in the tax roll long term. So, we can look into that. But a lot of times we're not looking to sell the properties for hundreds of thousands of dollars, especially when you think about the development costs going on and the additional costs that you see in Holyoke right now, right? So, if you're going to develop on High Street, one of the big issues we're having right now is that every single property on High Street is going to have a $75,000 to $150,000 additional cost to put in new transformers, because the electrical capacity is not in those buildings and there's no natural gas. So right off the bat, when the margin is so small already in Western Mass and in Holyoke for developers to close that gap to make money and get development going, we've now added additional costs onto them. So that property acquisition is really, really key when it comes to properties getting developed. And so, happy to talk about splitting costs, but, I don't think that's not HRA's main goal, right? Is to make a lot of property up, obviously a bigger property would get more, but these small parcels, these empty parcels, we got to get those activated somehow and get them more attractive, and the area more attractive. I think that's what's stopping us right now. When you look at, the entire block around Cabot Street, on the same side of City Hall, that those buildings are just sitting there empty, and private development's not going to come in there until we're able to do something. So totally hear you on some kind of profit sharing or sales sharing. We're not in it to make money to begin with, but just putting it out there, like our goal is the long term, right? Is to get this stuff in there for the long term, as is yours.
Yeah, I didn't mean on the same lines as profit sharing. I meant the profit we want to share is putting the property back on the tax rolls. But just if something happens where the city could do something that the HRA didn't want to do or wasn't allowed to do, the property might come back to the city for that purpose. That was it.
And some of the properties that are out there right now are both in the urban renewal plan, but we did them through the city. So it's always an opportunity to go through with the city for the procurement, without question.
Thank you. Councilor Puelo.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, I appreciate it. So I was listening to the answer. I thought Councilor Bartley asked a very good question. Why does the HRA need to do this and not the normal procurement RFP process? So just to clarify, does the City Council play any role in approving a project that the HRA wants to do?
This stage.
Okay, and I think I heard the answer being no, and I can already see kind of where this is coming from, and I'm not going to say, I don't want to assume anyone's intentions, but I can tell you right now, I'm not voting for this, and I would urge my colleagues not to vote for this either. Why can't this go through the normal RFP process? Why are we trying to cut the council out of approving the deals that come through here? Why are we trying to cut the council out of publicly seeing the people that are putting in for things and what's happening in the presentations? And I can tell you that there's a number of issues that come out of this, and one of them is the reverters, and I've been bringing this up. I know Jay knows what I'm talking about, and Councilor Jordan and I are working on an order to kind of address this, but I would just urge my colleagues not to vote for this at all. If there's a project that comes through, and I saw that, wonderful. If there's a project that wants to come through, it should be done through the normal RFP process so that it's presented to the council and the council can approve it. The main difference that I see between the HRA and the OPED is council approval. So that's my 2 cents. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, so thank you, Team OPED. I will be voting in favor of this because I understand how economic development works, and I appreciate you guys bringing this before us. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the transfer of properties listed below to the redevelopment authority for the consideration of $1. I'll just read the addresses: 510 High Street and 588 High Street for the transfer to the redevelopment authority. Sure.
I'm going to second the motion for purposes of this discussion, of course. So.
Okay.
So, under discussion, I would just like to clarify with Aaron. I thought I heard him say that the lots were not buildable. Did I understand that correctly?
We have to double. They might not meet the current zoning for buildable lots. So we're trying to work on that right now with some of the other ordinances that I think are out there. So we're trying to utilize the tools that we do have in the toolbox with the redevelopment authority, and we're not doing anything that any other redevelopment authority doesn't do in the state. So,
okay.
And these aren't going out to RFP right now, and you wouldn't be privy to that part. So, yeah, I have to double check. I can double check. I drove in from Maine right to get the meeting, so I don't have all my notes in front of me today, but. I'll triple check that for you before you. I'll be in the office tomorrow. Triple check that.
Would just appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Sure. No problem.
Councilor Bartley.
Just, I heard what the prior counselor said, and I do respect everything he said. I guess I'm going to support this for tonight to recommend it goes forward, and the reason I'm going to do that because I just want to you know, I'll take a little more time to do some more due diligence on this, but I've got to have faith in department heads and guidance. Now it's not blind faith, okay? So I'll never say that, but I just feel like, I mean, the parcels are before us. There's got to be a reason why these are before us and why they're going to HRA, and I'm assuming it's got to be a more efficient way to get them back on the property tax rolls ultimately. So proof's in the pudding, of course. I certainly want to hear more from the HRA, look at the annual report, and talk to the board members. We know and respect all the board members of HRA, and we appreciate all their diligence, of course. So, I mean, one of the things I think we have to try to do, and you know, maybe I'm guilty of it too, but we have to, you know, somehow we have to, you know, work as a little bit of a cohesive unit, especially when it comes for real estate development, getting stuff that is dormant and getting it back in the tax rolls. I mean, if we're willing. So I'm willing to take the chance on this one and the next one. Thank you.
Councilor Bacon?
Thanks. I do appreciate the concerns, but I think these are good properties to try something with to see if something different can happen. Because doing the same thing over and over hasn't really resulted in positive movement. So I say give it a try, but I do hope, and I'm echoing Councilor Bartley in this regard, that we have communication. And I do think the Redevelopment Authority is pretty good at sending us their minutes. So, you know, I think we do have that there so that we can see what happens through that mechanism as well. So I say give it a try.
Thank you. And just because we're talking about it, we have been trying to get the HRA into a meeting, but we haven't worked out schedules yet, so that'll happen soon.
Good job. All right.
All right.
On the motion.
So I had a second. We had discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved.
Make motion, take 9 off the table.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Item number 9 is motioned that the City Council extend the order approved by the City Council on August 2nd, 2016, and reapproved on October 16, 2018, which authorized the transfer of the properties listed below to the HRA, the Redevelopment Authority, for the consideration of $1. The authorization would not be applicable to the property at 160 Middle Water Street, as this property has been sold. The original transfer authorization and subsequent extensions are in accordance with the Holyoke Redevelopment Authority's Urban Renewal Plan, and vote to reauthorize the transfer of these properties listed below to the Holyoke Redevelopment Authority for consideration of $1. So, Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, these have been approved by this body a couple times?
Yeah, so to the points that Council Puello and Council Bartley brought up, you know, they're just sitting, you know, and we're trying to move them. The Armory is one of them. That's back out. We're trying to interest in the Armory. So, you know, we're here to ask to reauthorize these again. Obviously, the last time it was authorized, there was a little 2-year pandemic, so we haven't necessarily been promoting these properties. But yeah, these are properties in the urban renewal plan that have been approved before for transfer. Again, they won't be transferred to us; they're just approved for transfer. And kind of the same talking points, I guess. But I think we need to definitely have that meeting with the HRA to kind of talk about how we can work better together, because there seems to be not misunderstandings, but just we want to make sure we're working together on this. So these are properties that again were in the urban renewal plan approved by the City Council prior, and one of them was the Armory. We noticed the Armory was on that list, so we were trying to move that property out, and so we just wanted to come back and see if you would authorize an extension again.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'm going to second it, but I just want under discussion. Yes, through Chair to Aaron. Aaron, what is going on with the Armory?
The Armory, so we're hoping to have an open house in the next 2 weeks. We've got the press out there. We got a little bit of interest. We had one interest locally, but there wasn't really a clear plan. It was sort of like, I might use the Armory. We put out that we want the Armory to be used in a multi-use development. So The Armory building itself could be an entryway to a new development. We think that this should be utilized, the historic nature of that building. There's plenty of property on that site to build additionally onto it for residential or commercial. Obviously, residential would make sense. It's in a residential area, but some commercial on the ground floor. So there's just not been a lot of interest. I mean, what we're trying to do right now, I would say, in keeping everyone abreast, and happy to talk to happy to have these conversations. We're talking to Boston Fed, we're talking to MOBD, we're talking to the Lieutenant Governor about putting together sort of a developers roundtable to start getting those developers that are more in the eastern part of the state, doing projects out in Brockton, New Bedford, Fall River, Lawrence, Lowell. We have some good developers locally, some great people who do smaller projects locally, but we need these bigger developers that have different vision and different means to try to get these properties. So we're trying to put together, in working with Lieutenant Governor's office, to try to put together a roundtable with mass development and try to bring some developers out here and have some properties ready. This would definitely be one of them, but we'd like to see some interest in the Armory. It's a great building. We'd like to see the historic nature saved. And we're not just looking to put a house or two on that property. We believe that with the senior center, the bank, access to the hospital, access to 91, I mean, it's a great spot. And so right near the Hope 6 project, so we really think that there's a real development that can happen there. It's just finding the right developer. And I will say, just anecdotally, but not even just anecdotally, I mean, everything is slowed down, not just in Holyoke, but throughout Western Mass and Massachusetts in general. I mean, the prices are starting to level out, but we're still seeing the bids come in for projects, still coming in high. So we're hoping to get some properties, on the table, for a roundtable with developers, with Lieutenant Governor and mass development, hopefully this early fall, and then have stuff ready to go. A lot of this, what we're getting in front of you, is to have this stuff ready to go, to put out the RFP either through the city or the HRA in that February, March timeline, so things are ready for the spring and summer. That's where we're headed now.
All right, thanks, sir. I'm going to make the value of that is 368.6. I know that's not an Aaron Vega assessment, but wow, that is weird. And then just this other one, it interests me a lot. What is the likelihood of getting? I mean, is it pie in the sky to get a convenience store, grocery store? Is that what we're going at, John and Aaron? Is that where we're driving at? And is that realistic?
I think it is realistic. I mean, there is a convenience store just down the street from there. But we did talk to one developer last year who was really interested about using the front space for a small cafe and then do residential. He was actually he had a business in town locally. I think he's brick, stone, mason. Him been doing other projects in the city, a lot of projects, and he just couldn't pull it off. So I do think that there's a viability there. There's a lot of residential. And again, if you had a store there, a nice convenience store, there's restaurants right up the street. Having a built-in store to provide for those residents would be really key. A small cafe or convenience store would be perfect there.
Any business is great, but something like that serves a community, Aaron, that would be a tremendous win. But all right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Chair. Aaron, very simple solution for the Armory. While you're waiting to develop the property in the back there, just build a basketball court and they will come.
True. Yeah, Joe. I think that's fantastic.
Great.
On the motion.
Well, we got to make a motion. So the motion is.
I thought we had.
We did.
And we were under discussion. I made the motion.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm all for it.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're getting punched.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, John, Marie, Law Department. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Never been there, my first time.
Thank you.
I'm a Giants fan. My